From space, you can see your adversary 24 by 7 anywhere. Now, that said, that capability today is one with USA, with China, and 24 by 7, and with private companies like Maxar, Planetum. Now, this changes the whole warfare because if what is most important is to know where the enemy is. And today's satellites, commercial satellites, can tell you what all is there, what the enemy has.
Do you see the beginning of a SpaceX like entity in the Indian ecosystem?
That is what I'm aspiring for. And that is when, in summary, when people ask me what do I do, I'm looking for Elon Musk in India.
You're looking for your Elon Musk. And have you found them yet?
Capability wise, yes. But maybe the deep pockets are not so deep.
Let's move on to drones, space, and cyberspace. You recently said that these domains have fundamentally altered conflict, modern conflict. What was the uh, first conflict or global incident that convinced you that India might have to rethink its doctrine?
So, as far as drones go, as they came, the first war which really turned the other way was the war in Azerbaijan, where the side which had more tanks and guns lost the battle. It was a revelation that what all drones could do. Before that, it was theoretical. Okay, the drones can see, they can be used to hit you and others, but there it manifested on ground as a reality. And all armies over the world then started thinking, okay, we have to look at drones more seriously. And then it has got reconfirmed after we have had the war, Ukraine and Russia, where it has had a very, very significant impact on the war. We all know it. We've been seeing it. But I would talk of space, which is more important. And space was important. Space started, human forays into space have taken place only for two reasons. One is for status, and the other is for military. So the first satellites were, of course, American satellites, where they had the ability to see the whole world. But today, this ability is there with everyone in the world. From space, you can see your adversary 24 by 7 anywhere. Now, that said, that capability today is one with USA, with China, and 24 by 7, and with private companies like Maxar, Planetum. Now, this changes the whole warfare because if what is most important is to know where the enemy is. And today's satellites, commercial satellites, can tell you what all is there, what the enemy has. Fortunately, in India, space, we have capabilities which are far better than many nations. Thanks to ISRO. They have given us 60 years of a legacy of technical ability, which keeps us at the high table.
So, do you believe that we're moving towards a future where wars begin in space and not with a bullet?
Well, Ukraine war started from space. The first thing they attacked was all terminals of Viasat all over Europe. And they neutralized the entire communication of the Ukraine army. And of course, that is where a commercial player, and that is Starlink, came with all what it gave Ukraine. And Ukraine's communication then on has been through the satellites. So there is a new dimension which has come in as commercial players providing the assets.
Interesting. So, is there a blind spot that India perhaps has as far as space is concerned?
So what we've seen is we have the capability for three critical elements which the armed forces use space for. That is communication, for navigation, and for ISR. ISR is intelligence, surveillance, and recce. But the numbers we have do not give us what we require. We require persistent ISR. That is continuous ISR. To put it very simply, like the air chief would say, that my pilot, when it goes to attack Pakistan, by the time he's turning around, I should get a picture of what damage has been done. Then I send the next aircraft based on that. So that capability, presently, there is a gap.
Okay.
That will require more satellites to be put by India. Presently, we were getting this information by using companies, international companies, European and American. But in the future, we have to have that capability with us.
Operation Sindoor, in terms of how it was, and the equipment we used, the weapons we used, including drones and air defense. Do you believe that that constitutes a huge change from how wars were fought on the Indian border before this?
So it changes some things which will happen, like Op Sindoor, that is Operation Short of War, where non-contact warfare, where without troops clashing with each other, you will fight a war. And for such a war, very clearly we saw drones, aircrafts, missiles become much more important to fight a war.
And the fact that we had everything.
Yes, and this is very important for all armies. If they have to be prepared to fight the next war and not the last war.
And we were prepared when it mattered. Wonderful. As Director General of the Indian Space Association, the whole idea of a war in space, how real is it?
Okay, so let me firstly, as the Director General of the Indian Space Association, my job is to ensure that private sector develops enough capability to be able to support military use and civilian use.
When you say private sector, you mean Indian private sector.
Indian.
Right now, we are dependent on.
I'm talking about Indian private sector.
Right, global private sector. We are dependent on them right now.
The first step has been taken, and I'll tell you about it. The Indian Armed Forces are now ordered 52 satellites to be made for ISR. Out of those 52 satellites, 31 satellites are being manufactured by the private sector.
Beautiful.
There are two companies who are ready to launch orbital rockets. This means they will have the capability to launch satellites for the Indian Armed Forces in quick time if required.
And what about critics who say that this should be not farmed out to the private sector and the government should have it within its own ambit? Because there are some of those.
So you're very right. Maybe this would be more relevant 10 years or 20 years back. We have to see the new space age which has emerged in the world. Likes of Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Branson, the owner of Virgin Galactic, have just changed the story in space. Today, the Indian International Space Station, the rockets which go to it do not belong to any sovereign. They do not belong to NASA. They belong to a private player. Today, the largest number of rocket launches has been done by Starlink, SpaceX, and not by any country. It has definitely done more launches than any other country, including China.
And civil military cooperation, that's what you're talking about. You're saying, when I'm saying civil, I mean the private sector. So you mean the civil. What is the biggest gap as far as India is concerned in the cooperation between these two in space?
So, like I would give you an example of space. Till 2020, civilian companies in India were only suppliers to ISRO. They could not do a complete job. What the government did was it opened up space to the private sector, and it was like unshackling space for India. What it has done is today private players are allowed to make rockets. They are allowed to make satellites for communication, satellites for ISR, and even do asteroid mining if they're capable of. So we have, by making the space bill, we are allowing space companies to do everything. Of course, it doesn't happen in a day. From 2020 to 2025, the private sector has proved its mettle. They are ready to launch rockets. 5 of them have launched satellites, and they will do much more. And what the advantage of a private sector is that there is more deftness, there is more ability to take risks, especially amongst the startups. And what a crop of startups we have in India. full of energy, capable, ready to take risks, and they will take India far ahead.
Do you see the beginning of a SpaceX like entity in the Indian ecosystem?
That is what I'm aspiring for, and that is when, in summary, when people ask me what do I do, I'm looking for Elon Musk in India.
You're looking for your Elon Musk. And have you found them yet?
Capability wise, yes, but maybe the deep pockets are not so deep. And that is where one has to ensure that money also comes to them, that they are able to live up to their dreams.
How do you convince a brilliant civil engineer that their tech can be decisive in a war?
Oh, yes. So, something in the last few years the Indian armed forces have done is what they call it the IDEX challenges. That is, their challenges, something any young man wants to make. He is incentivized by being given a grant of, say, 1 lakh, 10 lakh, 25 lakhs. They are interacting more with the armed forces to understand what the armed forces would require. And many very creative ideas are coming from these young men, supported by some kind of finances by the three forces. And this has really helped. And I took advantage of this by getting IDEX space challenges made. Today we have 75 IDEX space challenges which define what the armed forces require in the future. And this has been given to these young men to work on it and build it for India.
Wonderful. And we have something coming in from them.
They already 30 to 40 challenges have been granted to them and they're working on it.